And we are live. Welcome back, everybody, to the world of Mundo Sporto. And we are back with another live stream. We've been away. We haven't been away, actually. I was literally live last night. It seems like it's ages ago. But yes, we're joined with a brand new guest. We're joined by Marcello. How are you, mate?
I'm good, mate. Hot, but I'm okay. Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah, it's very, very good to have you here. And it's very, very good to be live once more. We'll be live again tomorrow, actually, at 11 o'clock tomorrow morning for a pre-season friendly Crystal Palace against Man United, which is going to be very good. As you can see, Nick Knack became a YouTube member earlier, and they were part of the members only stream. So make sure to become a member if you want to be part of that. We're going to be doing so many Q&As, some great fun is there. Hello to Dean in the chat and hello to Alex as well. So basically, Marcello, before we get into the crunch of things, would you like to just give the audience a brief sort of overview of your background, working background, and who you support and what sports you like? Because it's quite an interesting array.
So I've got an Italian mother and a Welsh father, which is the best way of describing things, I think, to start off with. So mum's the football woman and dad's the rugby guy. So I've been brought up with those two sports. I've kind of, not so much in the last couple of years, but I was kind of quite a big Juventus fan for quite a while. And then in the last few years, I haven't followed them as closely. Essentially, I'm a huge Liverpool fan. I used to have an unofficial account, which I used to just throw my thoughts on about everything Liverpool related, and wasn't very professional, so I had to take that down in the end. So I'm now a sports editor for the Worcester News, which is a local paper near where I'm from. So I cover a lot, basically every sport under the sun. Everything you can find in the UK is basically what I report on. So producing newspapers, online content, and so on. But yeah, just a massive sporting fan in general. Big on football, big on rugby. They're my two sports, really. So that's what you need to know, really. I think if you're interested enough, you might want to follow me on Twitter. But I wouldn't blame you if you didn't.
We'll put the link in the description later on. We had the members only stream about half an hour ago, Mark. You missed it. I was gutted not to see you there, mate. I was really sad, but yeah, no, it was all good. It's all good, mate. Don't worry. You're always a big supporter of the channel, and you spent 3.5 hours watching the boxing event with me the other day, which we're all really, really thankful for. Evening to Gary, evening to Alex, evening to Corin. So yeah, it's great to see you all. And if you do want to become a member, the link is right here. So we'll get straight into the football now then, Marcello, and we'll may as well start with our beloved Liverpool, right? We'll go to Ben Davis because we did discuss this yesterday, but I do want to hear your thoughts on this. Basically the biggest Moneyball signing as well. It's £500,000 the initial outlay. Liverpool will receive 4 million from Rangers in return. What are your thoughts on this? I mean, to get 4 million for a ghost, I think is quite good.
Well, I think you can compare it to some of the best deals in terms of actual profit made on a player, considering he didn't play. And I think unfortunately for Ben, it was a case of when all of the injuries struck, and all of a sudden Liverpool were in a position where they had to panic buy centre halves, and ended up buying Ben Davis. When really, I think we all looked at it and thought, well, one, I thought, who is Ben Davis? If I'm being totally honest, and two, this is a very un-Liverpool-like signing. He just didn't really fit the mould of a Liverpool centre half, and I think he'd probably admit to himself that he was far below what the quality of Liverpool Football Club, and ultimately he was brought in to try and do a job. But in the end, we kind of made do, didn't we? We made do with Reece Williams and some of the other guys as well. Natty Phillips obviously did such a tremendous job in making sure we got to that Champions League last season. So yeah, I mean, I think it's a great deal for everyone involved. Ben, I can imagine, is the kind of player that wants to play football essentially, and whilst joining Liverpool must have been a massive thrill for him and a big moment, ultimately on reflection he probably thinks, well, I still want to play football, and if I'm not going to play football at Liverpool Football Club, then I'd rather go somewhere else, to be honest. So I think it's a great move for all parties. Liverpool have done tremendously well out of it. And he'll obviously get some game time with Rangers, a club that obviously Liverpool and Rangers have done a lot of dealings before in the past. So yeah, I think it ticks the boxes for everybody, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And I mean, The thing is, I want to commend his agent, whoever he is. They got him the move, a 5-year contract and £60,000 a week at Liverpool, which was quite a remarkable piece of a negotiation for Ben Davies. But yeah, I think it's fair enough, and I think he'll do well. Obviously, Celtic were linked with him before as well, so Rangers can get one over on them. But yeah, it's certainly a deal which benefits all parties, I feel. And yeah, it's probably one of the final bits of business I think Liverpool will do this window. There doesn't really seem to be much else. I'll go because I know there's a lot of Liverpool fans in the chat anyway. Marcello, what do we think? Do we think Liverpool will do any more business this summer, where in terms of major or incomings or outgoings? Because personally, I think we're done and dusted.
I think we are done, and I think originally a lot of us thought that actually nothing was going to happen this transfer window. So I think, generally speaking, I think we should be really pretty pleased with how it's panned out. Obviously, we're yet to see what Nunez is made of, really, and it's going to take time, like Klopp said. He said it's going to take time, so we have to give him the benefit of the doubt in that sense. And Klopp has often signed players, and sometimes they need a season to bed in, and everyone would love to jump on the bandwagon and say, oh my God, what a rubbish sign and what a waste of money. But I think Klopp's history and Klopp's reputation has to give him a nod and say, well, you just got to wait and see, because Klopp knows what he's doing. This guy's 22 years old. He's had one season in Champions League football essentially, so he's got so much potential, and you just got to let it play out. But rival clubs, every club other than Liverpool, will just be like, oh, what a waste of money. But I think obviously Carvalho is a really good signing. I think he's the kind of player that I don't think will need too long to kind of bed in. I think he'll be given plenty of game time. So yeah, I think, and obviously Ramsey as a backup right back. So that was a position that we were wanting to fill, really, because I think at large parts, look, I'm a big Nico Williams fan. I really, really am. I'm the Welsh side of me, so I've got a membership, so I go and watch Wales all the time. So he used to play as a left winger for Wales, and he was just tremendous. Like the amount of time I watched him man of the match after man of the match after man of the match. I mean, some of the big games, including games against like Belgium. So he was always played out of position, really. So and when you got someone like Trent there, you need someone that's, you need a Kostas Tsimikas like Kostas is on the left. We need someone on the right that can come in and do a really good job, not just kind of fill in like Joe Gomez has been used in the past, or James Milner, even Slabhead on the right back. So, look, I think Liverpool should be pretty pleased, really. Obviously, I think Mo Salah signing his new contract was one of the main things, and we'll all be gutted about Sadio, of course. But again, 6 years of having him and still making a profit as well is incredible business, really, when you look at it. So I think we can be relatively pleased, and I think if we get that confirmation that we're going to be all in on Jude Bellingham next summer, then I'm all for this transfer window and how it's played out, really.
Yeah, we've got 2 lookalike shouts for Marcello already. Mason Mount with a beard. Have you ever heard that one before? We've also got the Wish Harvey Elliott.
The Wish Harvey Elliott. Oh, ouch.
Don't worry, mate. I got Andy Robertson from Wish the other day, which I didn't. I've never had Andy Robertson before. It's always been Jack Grealish. Who else have I had? Fabio Barini at one point, and then see, I don't see any of those. I see, and also Harry Maguire before as well, which sadly I think is more accurate, which is a bit of an L for me. But yeah, so we are going to be talking about Real Madrid, and well, not Real Madrid. We're going to be talking about Barcelona a lot later on, because the Swiss Ramble thread on it earlier was very informative and basically told us all how they managed to afford all of this stuff. So yeah, it's going to be good. So moving on to a striker signing. I know Alex in the chat absolutely is a big West Ham United fan. And Chelsea's Armando Broja, the Albanian, has been linked with a loan move, but also a 30 million buy move to West Ham United. Only got 6 league goals with Southampton last year, as Nick Knack did inform me in the members only stream earlier. What are your thoughts on him? Will he be a good addition to West Ham?
I mean, it's very difficult. I think with obviously Chelsea have got such a, I'm not sure if they got a great record in producing these players when they don't actually do anything with them. It's when they move on from Chelsea that they tend to do well. And you've got to look at some of the names, just the obvious ones like Mo Salah and Kevin De Bruyne and players like that go on and do really good things. So I think obviously the the players that come off the conveyor belt at Chelsea are all extremely talented. And if they're given the right place to go to, then anything can happen. And I think West Ham are a really good club, and I think they go in places really. And I think that kind of signing kind of suits. Obviously, there's still that element of not really knowing what he's capable of. There's obvious talent there, but do we know? Is he going to do enough for West Ham? Obviously, I think West Ham are kind of in dire need really of someone that can score goals as well as Antonio. So it could be a great move, but I think there's a massive element of the unknown really, of what he could produce. Like you said, 6 goals for Southampton. It's okay in terms of not playing not playing loads of games. So it remains to be seen what that move could do. But if he's really pushed that move and it's a move that he wants individually, then you've got to think, well, if he wants that individually, then he's going to kind of push to make it work. So I think there's reason to be kind of reasonably excited about it. But also I think there's going to be an element of having to wait and see how that one pans out.
Yeah, West Ham are really an interesting one, I feel, because a lot of people, to be honest, they were not losing to Brighton. If they beat Brighton, I believe, on the final day, I think it was Brighton, they would have got into the Europa League ahead of Manchester United. Instead, they're in the Conference League. I personally feel the only thing they really lacked was depth, and as you mentioned, an alternative to Michail Antonio, because towards the end of the season he looked a bit tired, and they were relying so heavily on Jared Bowen. But with the additions of Broja and potentially Dan Juma, I know that one's gone quiet. I think they could be up with challenging for that top 6 position again. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, West Ham were terrific last season, but they've almost been probably, let's be fair, unlucky with the way that it's fallen. That the fact they're going to be in the Conference League, it's similar to the Europa League, but almost kind of a little bit worse, just in the fact that the standard is going to be questionable from some of the leagues. It's potentially a lot of travel for some, so it's not a great position to be in. It's obviously having to play games as well midweek, so you have to have a massive squad to be able to compete in Europe. And if you don't, it can affect you massively. So I think West Ham have got a long way to go in terms of building a squad that compete on 2 fronts. But I guess if they don't throw everything at the Conference League and they kind of make sure that every weekend they've got their kind of regular starting 11, then they can potentially make it work. But I don't think they're in a position where they can compete on both fronts. I think they're going to have to prioritise one of the two, and I'd assume that it's keeping themselves in the hunt for a top 6 in the Premier League so that they can attract the better players, really, because winning the Conference League might be a nice trophy to have, but it's a little bit like the Carabao Cup in the sense that it's not going to bring you in extra players. It's not seen as something that, oh wow, kind of thing. So yeah, I think they're an interesting prospect, and obviously they did so well last season. And they got some, when their first team is out, they're a match for anybody. We saw that numerous times last season. So yeah, they're going to have to build on that squad if they want to compete in those competitions. But they're definitely a team that are going to continue to develop under a manager who I think's really, really terrific in David Moyes. I think he's such a I think he's a good man manager, and I think if he's given enough time at a club, he can get the best out of them. So yeah, they'll be an interesting team again next year.
Yeah, I think they certainly will be. Yeah, it's I think with the Conference League, they've either got to go completely all in and play their first team as soon as the knockout stages come around, literally get in there, or they've got to completely disregard it. I think we saw Tottenham this season go out of the group stages, and it didn't really work out for them. They lost to, I believe, a Slovenian side, so it wasn't the greatest moment. So look, it's going to be a tough one, but I think West Ham will hopefully get with their new signings the balance right, and maybe with Broja you can have license then to go and score some goals. So talking of another West Ham lad, as Alex said, unfortunately in the chat, Jesse Lingard could potentially be making the move back to West Ham United. Now, I think, to be honest, if I was a Hammers fan, I'd be a little bit tired of this whole Lingard saga. But do you think he's still got the capability to make an influence at the London Stadium?
obviously he did so well in his time there originally, and obviously he's not played a lot of football. He's not played a lot of football in the season gone by, and I think a player at his age, he's kind of been a bit stuck in limbo. Really, he's not really young in the sense that he's still got plenty of time, but he's not too past it in that sense. So he's in that middle ground where he wants to play regular football, but he doesn't just want to play regular football at whatever cost. He wants to still play regular football at a competitive level. And I still think West Ham is. I don't know. I mean, I don't really know many West Ham fans, so I don't really know how they feel about him going back. But looking at it from the outside, you'd think, well, it was a player that obviously loved being there, obviously, thrived under the manager, thrived with the football they play. So I still think there's a space for him there, but whether or not that time's gone now, and it's a case of our West Ham wanting to kind of move on and maybe look at someone a little bit better or someone a little bit younger that they can kind of build on. It's a difficult one, but I still think if I look at West Ham's team, I still think that Jesse Lingard is at a level that he can compete in that team and still produce. I mean, but again, I wouldn't know too much about it in terms of what West Ham fans think of him, to be honest.
Yeah. So moving on, no offense, Alex, to a slightly bigger club in London, Chelsea. They look like they're going to get Presnel Kimpembe in. They apparently have made their opening bid today. I'm just trying to verify how much that is with a mate of mine who loves Chelsea. But do you think it'd be a good signing for them? Because he's obviously got a lot of experience and silverware with PSG.
Well, yeah, I think you just got to kind of look at what Thiago Silva did when he came really to Chelsea. He obviously brought a wealth of experience and a wealth of trophies. You've got someone there that's still not massive, not kind of outrageously old, is he? He's kind of still in the kind of prime years, you'd say. So I think Chelsea are building a terrific team, really. I'm not sure if they confirmed Koulibaly's signing, but if they were to
that's all sorted now, yeah.
Well, so, I mean, you're looking at that and you're thinking if you're adding, you've still got Thiago Silva there, you've got Kimpembe, you've got Koulibaly, Koulibaly is, at times, maybe not last season, but the season before last, people were saying that Koulibaly was up there with the likes of Van Dijk as one of the best centre-halves in Europe. And I've seen him enough times to know exactly what he's about. Does he play the Chelsea way? I'm not entirely sure of that, but he's very much in the mould of Rudiger, who he's very kind of, but I'd say he's probably a little bit more of a composed Rudiger. So, look, Chelsea have been a really good side, and I think if they can add experience and someone of Kimpembe's ability, then they're going to continue to be a threat. And you look at the team that they're building, and you'd probably say, well, they're continuing to look good. And they're still lacking for me someone that's going to score them enough goals. Sterling's there.
He was going to go tries then.
I just something glanced up about rugby then. Raheem Sterling wouldn't be very good.
All good, mate.
I don't think he would be very good at rugby, but yeah, I mean, Chelsea they're building a good squad, and I think they're going to be a real threat next season. I think they're going to probably not bridge the gap entirely on Liverpool and City. Well, maybe on Liverpool remains to be seen, but they're certainly building a squad that looks on paper incredibly talented.
Definitely. Hi to Joe Allen in the chat, by the way. Hope you're doing well. And for those of you who are new around here, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We're trying to get to 26k. We're only get to about 20 away. So I'm sure we can hit it either this week or next week to get to 26k. So it's going to be really good. For Chelsea, I feel like they are lacking that goal threat. Despite the fact they brought in Raheem Sterling, I don't feel like they have enough creation and enough end product in order to compete with Chelsea, to compete with Man City or Liverpool. But what are your thoughts? Because for me, I don't see what people see in Timo Werner.
Well, no, and I think as a Liverpool fan, we massively dodged a bullet with him, really, having seen what he's kind of produced. Look, in a weird way, I still like Timo Werner. I probably shouldn't, and I don't really understand why I do, but he's just got, if he can, I think there are times when obviously he scored so many goals that were ruled out. If those kind of goals weren't, and people will say, oh, he's offside and he's a bad, but on paper, if you look at it, he still could have been a 20-goal striker for Chelsea, and he's the kind of, he gets in all these great positions. He has all these chances. It's like if he can just find the net, then he. And I know as a striker that's a ridiculous thing to say, because if you're not finding the net, then you're a rubbish striker. But I still think Werner is capable. Look, I don't think he's the kind of player that is going to win you titles or win you tournaments or competitions. He probably isn't, and I don't think Sterling is either. And I think with Chelsea, they've almost got about 5 or 6 attackers and no real out-and-out striker. And I think potentially, I'm not sure why if they were ever interested in Gabriel Jesus, because I'm sure that he might have done a better job in terms of that striker role. But again, I think there's a general lack of out-and-out strikers across Europe, and I think they're sparse and they're few and far between, and trying to find one is difficult. And I think, City and Liverpool I'm biased in the sense that I think Núñez is going to be one of those, but City and Liverpool have got the ability to get these strikers in, but they aren't everywhere, you see. So Chelsea have got goals, and I think if they can, they've got players that will provide goals. They don't have that out-and-out prolific goal scorer, so that might be the only reason why you don't look at them and think, they're title contenders, but are they capable of really winning trophies and really pushing City and Liverpool all the way without a goal scorer? Probably not.
No, absolutely. So we're going to move away from the Premier League. We're going to go to La Liga and go to Barcelona, who have just arrived with the signing of Robert Lewandowski from Bayern Munich, a player who agreed personal terms with them 4 months ago. They also signed Rafinha this week as well. So I personally, mate, we'll go into the finances of it, but I really like those two signings. I'm not going to lie. I think Lewandowski and Benzema going against each other is a great narrative going into La Liga. And I think Rafinha's decent, and I think he'll excel at Barca. But so removing all the finances away from it, do you think those two can succeed there?
You see, I'd personally be more excited about more excited, maybe slightly exaggerated, but the Rafinha signing is one I think we've all seen what he's capable of in a Leeds team that obviously struggled massively last season. And you look at it, and I think when players do really well in teams that struggle and they still manage to stand out, you got to think, they're capable of more. I think where Barcelona are currently at now at the moment, Rafinha is the kind of player that can go in there and I think can push for a starting spot and will be able to produce the goods. So is Rafinha the kind of signing that is going to get them back in Champions League contention and kind of getting to the latter stages of the tournament? I don't know. I'd probably veer on the side of no. But then Lewandowski he's proved it year after year after year, the kind of goals he can score. He's obviously applied his trade in Germany all this time. Moving to another country you always have to kind of factor in that it might take a little bit of time. But on paper, you just look at it and think, what a signing, because the guy scores goals for fun and has done forever. I do think that at some point he's going to tail off. Will that be at Barca? Potentially. But I think for at least another, it certainly gives them another season and a bit of competing again, potentially. But yeah, I don't get, people might slate me for this, but I don't get as excited about that Lewandowski signing as some people are.
It's an interesting one. They certainly saved a few quid on their announcement videos because they weren't exactly high tech. So yeah, but we'll go into the finances of it here. So this is a really interesting thing. So you'll have to bear with me, Marcello, because I will go deep into this, because this Swiss Ramble, I know you guys may follow them on Twitter. The most unbelievable football Twitter account. I say football Twitter. It's a football finance account, and they're amazing at doing some just all things finances. So the original tweet is Barcelona have announced the signing of Rafinha from Leeds for 58 million euros and Robert Lewandowski from Bayern for 50 million euros is agreed in principle. The question is, how can they afford these players despite their well-documented financial problems? Only last month, President Joan Laporta compared Barcelona to a patient who was practically dead in financial terms, while the Vice President for Finance, Edward Romeo, said that 500 million euros was needed to save the club. This is not surprising considering the magnitude of FC Barcelona's financial issues. After many profitable years, Barcelona slumped to 133 million euros pre-tax loss in 2020, followed by a shocking 555 million euro loss in 2021. This is the highest ever loss reported by a football club. So just from those numbers, we'll move more into it there because we don't want a Chris Stonadge monologue. Marcello, they are damning, aren't they?
Well, they are. And I think people that maybe a little bit like me, probably, that aren't as kind of, you read that thread and a lot of it you look at and think, God, like I can't even make sense of that myself, to be honest. So I think for someone like me, there are probably plenty of, looking at it and you just think, well, how on earth are they managing to kind of function? And I think everyone's kind of initial reaction would be to be our classic big football club with loads of money trying to find a way around it and bending the rules and bending the finances to make sure they can get what they want, kind of thing. But it's obviously a very, very interesting situation and one that you kind of have to keep an eye on, really, because as soon as you let your eye off something like that, that's when these kind of clubs get away with it, really. So it's the way I look at it, it's very much a case of they've lost so much and they're trying to pay it back as much as they possibly can, very little by little, but at the same time finding a way around the rules so that the percentages of the debts they're paying that they can use to kind of buy other players, whilst at the same time trying to negotiate lower contracts with current players and getting players in on the cheap, kind of thing. So it's a very interesting situation, and I think it's one that will kind of rumble on, but for sure the finances and the numbers are just bonkers.
Yeah, I mean, so there is rays of light for Barcelona, though. The good news is that their debt has been restructured with a 10-year, 595 million loan at 1.9%, replacing old short-term debt. Before the refinancing, there was a major issue as 596 million euros had to be repaid within 12 months. So that's now been restructured over 10 years. It's also worth noting that Barcelona's 555 million loss was significantly impacted by the 271 million once-off costs from the due diligence report. This is mostly from player signings such as Coutinho, Ousmane Dembele, etc., etc. And also the net impact for COVID of 92 million is included in this. So I know this isn't a finance stream, by the way, guys, but this is just so interesting. So each season, La Liga calculates a club's salary cap as revenue loss. In contrast to UEFA's financial fair play rules, which look at previous years, La Liga's regulations are applied in advance. So in terms of the signings they've made, Marcello, the Coutinho one, which totaled 142 million, including the money paid to debtors. Frankie de Jong was, I believe, 70 to 80 million, who was on 400 grand a week. Ousmane Dembele, 135 million. Antoine Griezmann, 120 million. It screams irresponsibility if you're looking at it in that way. What are your thoughts? Even if they had succeeded, they would have been in this situation.
Yeah, I mean, it's irresponsible in the extreme, really. I think they just, for so many years, rode the wave of the success of the team and being able to kind of keep that team together for such a long period. And they've rode the wave of that and thought, oh, it's all so great. We're winning all these competitions. We're doing so well. And at the same time, we're paying all these players so much money. We'll be fine. We'll be fine. And in the end, it kind of came to that point where that kind of Barcelona team started to slip away and dismantle from what it was. And they've kind of left, and then Barca have all of a sudden gone, oh, we've been paying all this money and now we're in this outrageous amount of debt, and we're now in a position where we're having to try and sell players and get them off the wage bill in order to try and get some of that money back. And it must be an incredibly difficult job for someone, that Twitter thread talking about how Xavi must be an impossible task trying to find ways of keeping people happy with in terms of their contracts and their financial situation, as well as trying to improve on a team when you're so far in debt? How are you able to then go and spend 100 million on 2 players? It's not a great look, but I think they're obviously going to have to spend a few years of maybe people looking at them and suggesting that they're doing things wrong. But at the same time, they are, like you said, there is kind of light at the end of the tunnel, but it's going to be a case of it's going to be a long road. And you think that Barcelona are going to be not in trouble, but they're going to be in a position where for a few years that they're going to struggle really, because they're not able to kind of spend that money that they once kind of irresponsibly did.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, my question is, when the likes of Gavi, Pedri, Ansu Fati, plenty other young players come through. Ronald Araujo's just signed a new deal himself. But when they all come wanting money and they see it across Europe, players are getting paid 2 to 3 times what they're getting paid of the same ability. What happens then for Barcelona? Will they be able to keep their golden generation together? Because unlike the time where they had Iniesta, Xavi, Puyol, Sergio Busquets, who's still kicking around now, Lionel Messi, of course, like they were able to keep them together because they grew as a club. But now they are in a real dire situation, and that might impact the club long term.
Well, it might, and I think you talk about the players that were once there, and Iniesta and Busquets and Puyol and all those kind of players. They were kind of there for such a long time, and they built such a dynasty together as a group, and they won all those trophies, and will be remembered in history as one of the greatest football teams to have ever kind of lived. And now you're in a position where you've got a lot of young players who don't necessarily have a lot of loyalty to Barcelona anymore. And when you're playing with that, and you're asking players that are not starting their careers, but they're in a position where they're like, well, I know what I'm worth now. I know that I can go somewhere else to play football at the similar level. Barcelona are no longer the top team in Europe that everyone wants to be at. You're not there anymore, and that's kind of drifting back towards. You probably argue it's drifting to the Premier League more and more every year. So they're in a position where they're not going to be able to hold on to these players unless they're players that are massively loyal and want to play at Barcelona. So, and unless that is the case, and I think nowadays that isn't there as much anymore as maybe it once was. So you've got young players there that know their worth, and everyone's got agents these days that know exactly what their players are worth, and they know that they can ask for loads and loads of money. And if they say no, they say, well, I can go to another team that will pay it. So Barcelona are going to have to struggle for that for a long time to come, by the sounds of it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as Nick Knack has said here, the South American players are still very keen to play for Barca. So there is still that history there. But how long that will last, considering how much money they have and the way that the Barcelona may be viewed to the younger generation of South American fans, it's certainly an interesting one. And whether they can maintain this, I'm not too sure. I'm not too sure whether they can keep bringing in these players. I don't know, but it's certainly an interesting thread to go and check out as well. So Paulo Dybala, sorry, Argentinian international, been at Juventus for so long. And has now moved away on a free, and he looks like he's going to Roma. The Jose Mourinho factor is certainly coming in there. So what are your thoughts on that move?
Well, kind of Italian football is something I've kind of been involved with for quite a while. So I've watched a lot of Paulo Dybala, and he's just got that very. I mean, when there were talks about him moving to Barcelona, it kind of all fit. You watch Dybala and you think, this guy is Barcelona all over. He's classy. He's got a wonderful left foot. He just drifts past players. Like, he's so. Everyone used to just compare him to Messi and be like, he's almost Messi's little brother and stuff like this. Obviously, both from Argentina and whatnot. And honestly, his set piece, his dribbling ability, he's got everything. He's got everything. But for a couple of seasons, he wasn't necessarily. He wasn't liked always by the managers. He wasn't always liked by Maurizio Sarri. He didn't always get on with Allegri. So it's been difficult for him to kind of really push on from that initial period where he was just kind of a superstar. And when he was leading Juventus to those kind of back-to-back finals. Well, back-to-back, but kind of pretty much back-to-back finals in the Champions League when they were doing so well, and he was kind of the catalyst of that. And when he scored those goals against Barcelona in that game, and in that Champions League game when they won 3-0, it was, I think if Juve had gone on to win one of those Champions Leagues, Dybala potentially would have been in a position where he would have been kind of heralded so much more by the Juventus fans. But as it is, it's kind of the last 2 years, it's almost gone cold there a little bit. And I think his time to move and get a big move to a big club was probably 2 years ago, and is now in a position where he's probably missed out on that. And I think he obviously likes Italian football. He's, that's where he's been. So the idea, the pull of Mourinho, that's what I've read, was a massive factor for him. And I think Mourinho still has a massive pull factor regardless of where he is or what he's doing. I think players still want to play under him. And, Roma are looking like a really good side. They've got a really nice front four. They've got young players, got plenty of young Italian talent led by a manager who's clearly getting the best out of them. They obviously won the Conference League, and there's still, there's some really good spirits at Roma now. So I think they're a side that, will be pushing, right up towards the top end of Serie A next season. And yeah, he's a great side, and on a free as well. It's one of those where you can take a punt on him because he's a free transfer. So look, he was by far and away the best Juventus player for a couple of years, really, and he was the big star. And I think he's obviously I think he'll go on and really succeed at Roma. He just needs the right manager, and he's still got plenty of time to kind of kick on really in his career.
Yeah, I think so. I definitely think so. He's certainly got a lot of natural ability. He's got dribbling, but the inconsistencies with fitness as well is something to be wary about. But I think him and Tammy Abraham, their little Stonadge partnership, could work really well. And I'm really excited to watch Roma this year. I just loved it. I just love it. I can see a lot of people chatting about the heat in the comments. It's been a nice hot old day. I don't mind the heat, to be honest. It is a little bit distracting when you're absolutely sweating your ass off in your office. But you know what? It's fine. It's fine. I embrace it. As Joanne says, never complain about the sun because it's great to have around especially when the winter's on. You long for the summer. You really do. So yeah, I think that will be a great deal for them. Cristiano Ronaldo, Marcello, is an interesting case. Earlier this window, it looked like he was going to Chelsea. Bayern Munich has been mentioned. Even moved to Saudi Arabia has been mentioned. But it looks like he's now staying put at Manchester United, and Erik ten Hag has discussed of having him even for another year, which I think on the whole is probably good news for Man United. But what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I think I'd go along with that. I think it's good news for United. Look, Cristiano Ronaldo, he's obviously going to score you goals. I think he's going to score you goals. I think this kind of narrative that he wasn't good for United was a strange one, because without him, what would they have even done last season, really, on the face of it? Now, at the same time, I do get what people are trying to suggest. That I'm not saying that he's not good for United, but I'm just thinking that he papers over the cracks is not really fair on him. But at the same time, it's kind of right, because United are in a position where they're really struggling, and Ronaldo obviously being there is a massive pull for fans. He's a massive in terms of what he can do. He can still produce, but I just don't think he plays the kind of the way that United are wanting to play. And I think he's going to score, and the leadership as well, and him obviously being a United legend. So he's going to still do a good job there. I just think that, is he as good as he was? No. It's a really difficult one. I really don't know whether he's what United, not what United need rather than want. I mean, he's obviously going to be, he's Ronaldo, but is he what United need still or need? I'd probably say no, but I think it's a case of a lot of clubs have looked at him and thought, yes, he's Cristiano Ronaldo, but at the same time, do I want him at my club? when he's such a big figure, he's such a big character, like it's very difficult to, I think a lot of managers look at him and think, do I want to, not to manage Ronaldo, but do I want him in my team where he's obviously going to not kind of shove me out as a boss, but is he going to kind of contest me and challenge me on a regular basis? And a lot of managers won't want that. Managers have to run the club. That's how it works. You know, Jurgen Klopp, Pep Guardiola, they run the club. That's why they have the success. Under Solskjaer, we all saw it. He did not run the club. And with Ronaldo there, I just think that it's difficult for a manager to run the club given everything that he's done in his career. And he could probably say, he's probably right to think that he still has a say in certain things at the club. So I can understand why people are skeptical about keeping him or even kind of going for him. And I think in the end, it's a case of, well, no one was no one was willing enough to take him on.
Yeah, I think that's probably the right way to go about it. I think he's obviously still got a top level of talent, but whether he fits into Erik ten Hag's system, who knows? But if Erik ten Hag can get Ronaldo on side and he's not a nuisance, then I think there's only positives to be taken from it. And if he realizes that he's not going to start every week, which I'm not sure Cristiano will realize, then maybe it'll work. But yeah, I was under the illusion really that he would either be the captain or he'd be gone, and he's neither of those because they've obviously confirmed that Maguire's going to be captain for the new season. So yeah, it's a really interesting one. We've got 19 minutes left to go with the stream. If you haven't already, make sure you subscribe. And also, if you want to become a member, the link's at the top. You get access to member exclusive streams, which Nick, Nack, and Jen can tell you were absolutely class earlier. So you can basically just a nice little chin wag with myself, which is always fun. Zlatan Ibrahimovic signed a new contract. Talking of Italian football, he'll now be playing past his 41st birthday. That man just does not know when to stop, does he?
If I'm being brutally honest, I cannot stand him. His whole kind of way he goes about it, his whole aura and his whole character, like it just drives me crazy. But it's an extraordinary. The guy is he's just a winner, isn't he? He just wants to play football. He wants to score goals. He wants to win football matches still, and that drive that he has. And I think the way he plays football kind of makes it not easy, but it lends itself for him playing a long career. And I think, again, he's almost like Ronaldo, but I think probably 10 times worse in the sense that he is just such a big character that it would just be impossible to, not necessarily impossible to manage him in the sense that he'd be impossible in the training ground, because obviously he'll do so much for the young players, especially young Italian players who will have just kind of grown up watching Ibrahimovic playing Italian football. So, look, for Milan fans, and I think whenever he's at your club, you probably think, oh, you know, he's so great to have. And I still don't think he's not going to go and score 30 goals a season per se, but he's going to have such an impact. But 40 years old, yeah, it's bonkers, really. It's crazy, but personally, I just cannot get to grips with the bloke at all. But there we go.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Divock Origi now as foil for him, which is I think is a good move. So yeah, Origi, Ibrahimovic, Rafael. Will they continue to challenge? Because obviously they won the Scudetto last year. It'll be another question. Inter will come back stronger. Juve come back stronger. I mean, it's going to be a difficult one to decide in Serie A this year, Marcello. I'm not too sure, but what are your thoughts as someone who follows it a little bit more keenly than I do?
Yeah, I think it's all set up for kind of a really interesting one. You've kind of got all of the big Italian clubs kind of in a position where you think, you know, they're looking in a strong position. Juve have had a few years of kind of moving on from that kind of, it's similar to Barcelona. They had a team for so long and a group of players that were born winners, and they've kind of all had to move on from that now almost. They've had to rebuild a little bit, and they've had to go through that classic kind of stage of where you're not really sure, you're kind of losing a lot, don't really have that kind of almost sitting there and saying, let's just kind of accept the fact we're not what we were now. So let's kind of move on and see what we can do. So Juve have gone through a few managers, back with Allegri now, and I think the signings of Pogba and Di Maria. And look, I don't think Di Maria is kind of at the peak of his powers anymore, but he's still a player that in the Serie A can perform. And Paul Pogba, I've always thought, just has an incredible ability and an incredible talent. And obviously that all came when he was at Juve. So he's kind of gone back to a club where he probably knows that he's appreciated by fans and the coach and the manager and the team as well. So Juve will be kind of right up there again. I'm still not sure if they have enough, especially defensively anymore. I'm not too sure. Roma, with the signings they've made and that kind of squad they're building, some like amazing, brilliant talent in Pellegrini and Zaniolo and Tammy Abraham, who did so well last season. Obviously, with Mourinho in charge and riding the wave of winning the Conference League, they're another one that can be right up there. And the Milan clubs, of course, as well. Like Lukaku at Inter it just worked. And I think you can already see in the first few kind of videos and clips of him being back, like how much he's just kind of happy to be back there almost. It came back to Chelsea. It didn't work. And he's gone back there now. And I think, I see him settling straight back into when he was at Inter before. So Milan, if I'm being totally honest, obviously seeing Divock Origi leave Liverpool was heartbreaking, and I hoped he'd never ever leave. But I can't see Leao, him, and Ibrahimovic being a team that wins you a title per se. I don't really think so. But they're all kind of up there, and I think you've got all of the big Italian clubs, and obviously Napoli's still kind of kicking around there as well. They're always going to be involved. So I think Serie A is a really tight one, and I think we're probably looking at a really keenly contested season.
Yeah, it's certainly going to be an enjoyable one. I'm sure we'll get a couple of experts on as well, because I know Nima, who does Inter, Sempre Inter, he might come on. He's a good friend of mine, so hopefully we can do that. We're going to do predictions for all the major European leagues, and mostly obviously Premier League stuff, because that's what people like to watch. So I think that's what we'll be doing mostly. There's 15 minutes left of the stream, guys. So let's have a little discussion on Lisandro Marcello. It's just signed for Manchester United yesterday from Ajax. Rumoured fees around £46 million. There's a lot been said about his height on social media. 5'9". Fabio Cannavaro was 5'9". I mean, I don't really understand it. From on the face of things, obviously you think he'd lose a lot of headers, but then Thiago Alcantara had the highest win percentage of aerial duels in the Premier League last season, and he's 5'8". So, what do you think, mate? What will his height have an impact, and will he be a good signing for United? Because personally, I feel he will be.
I mean, in terms of him as a player individually, I can't pretend that I've watched a lot of him, to be totally honest. So you're going off what people's reactions are, what the kind of people that are in the know say about him, and generally speaking, it's all kind of really good things. And I think you can sometimes find with the smaller guys that, especially kind of South Americans, they're tough. Like they're tough guys, and they don't, just because they're not tall and have massive stature doesn't mean that they're not fierce defenders. And from what I've seen of him, he's absolutely that. When you look at the Premier League and you look at the size of some of the best centre-halves and the best defenders, you think you kind of need to have that. And especially in the Premier League, where it's so much more physical. Yes, his height might have been not too much of an issue outside of the Premier League, but when you come to the Premier League and you're coming up against bigger strikers, you're coming up against stronger centre halves, it's all kind of, you take the physicality and you times it by 5 kind of thing. So I can see where people are coming from when they question his height, but then there's a reason that he's paying 50 million for him. There's a reason he's done so well with Ajax, and there's a reason that Man United kind of want him. So, and Ten Hag obviously knows what he's doing. Obviously, being an Ajax coach himself, so he knows what he's doing. He knows who he's coached before. He knows the players in that league, especially. So you look at it and you think he obviously knows what he's doing. But on the face of it, I can see that both sides. Obviously, Cannavaro, case in point, but that was 15 years ago, kind of thing, almost. So I'm unsure about him, but I don't think it would be totally fair of me to comment, given I haven't, like quite a few people, I haven't watched a fat lot of him, to be honest.
Yeah, that's fair enough. It's fair enough. I personally, I've seen probably about 5 games of Martinez, and I could say that the aerial is not a problem. But as you say, it's Eredivisie. It's not the Premier League. You look at who Chelsea just brought in, Kalidou Koulibaly, he's an absolute physical specimen. Virgil van Dijk, Kanate at Liverpool, even at Arsenal, Gabriel Magalhaes, absolute unit. So a lot of big players, and you do wonder if realistically Virgil van Dijk is going to be Lisandro Martinez in the air. So is Darwin Núñez probably, despite the fact of his height. So yeah, it's a difficult one to really analyze without actually seeing the players in comparison. Hey to Villa player, I hope you're doing well. Just packed Tots VVD. I assume you mean FIFA. And congratulations to you, because he's an absolute beast, and hopefully he does well in your team. I suppose so, Nick. Yeah, and it's going to be a really interesting campaign this year. You mentioned earlier we haven't really discussed it at length, so I want to go back to something Liverpool. Darwin Núñez has come under so much criticism on social media. He's had 60 minutes of football in a Liverpool shirt, and he's already being called a flop in pre-season. I mean, it's a little bit crazy, and it shows how crazy the world of social media is. But I assume and I hope that you're not giving up on him quite yet.
Oh, it's kind of classic. It's classic. That kind of, as soon as a big club like Liverpool or United or Man City, as soon as they spend the big bucks on a player, everyone expects great things straight away. And he's played one season of Champions League football, really. He's 22. He's a really young guy. He's just moved to playing English football. So you add all that in, and then you add in that it's pre-season anyway. Like, I know, for a fact that players through pre-season, they're more focused on their fitness. They're trying to get things right. They're not throwing themselves at everything, are they? Klopp has said that it's going to take time for Núñez to bed in. Of course, it's going to take time. If you move from the league like the Portuguese league and you're coming to the British, they come into the Premier League, it's going to take time. Like, obviously, it's going to take time. He's played 60 minutes, but it's just the kind of classic. People see the big name, that they see the big price tag, and they're just going to get on it straight away. And obviously, as it's a Liverpool signing, and unless you're a Liverpool fan, most fans don't tend to be too fond of Liverpool. So that's kind of where I'm seeing it coming from. And yeah, all these people, Núñez could come and score 25 goals this season, and everyone would have to be like, all right, fair play. I shouldn't have said anything really. It was bonkers of me to say it in the first place. He could go on and score 5 goals this season, but Klopp has said it's going to take him time, and he's 22. He's got such a long career ahead of him. Like, he can take years to bed in if he wants to, because if Klopp knows what he's going to get, and we saw it, case in point, at Anfield in a Champions League knockout stage game, completely run the game. That's obviously why we've signed him, and Klopp has proven time and time again that when he sees a player and he sees what he wants in a player, he'll get him and he'll turn him into exactly what he wants. So I think he's got a player that wants to play for him, bags of potential. It's just a case of nurturing through these first few months of the Premier League, which will be tough, and it'll just be a case of letting him crack on. And obviously he'll go to the World Cup, I presume, as well. So he's got bags of time to prove to everyone what he's got. And this was a guy that when he played for Benfica and he was turning Liverpool inside out in that game, everyone was running riot about him at the time on social media. And now all of a sudden he's played 60 minutes and he's getting a kick in on social media. It's like, come on, do us a favour.
Exactly, mate. Exactly. It's a strange one. One man I will give credit to, though, is Mark Goldbridge. I never thought I'd say these words, but he has been consistent. Apart from one tweet, I remember he did say Timo Núñez. Apart from that, he's been very consistent on his streams and everything, saying that, look, Liverpool have got themselves a hell of a player here. he also remained very consistent in the fact that Liverpool were always going to sign him. So shout out to Mark Goldbridge for that. Like he needs a shout out from us, really. But yeah, he has stuck to his guns on that one. And I'm just really excited to see him, Nunes, in a Liverpool shirt. Going into the new season, to be honest, and to have a player of his stature and quality, it's going to be fun. Do you see him starting straight away against Fulham, Marcello?
Well, I naturally, because of the issue of Diogo Jota, it's kind of unknown. One, kind of the extent of the injury, and two, how much of pre-season he's going to get, if any at all. So that in itself could kind of force Klopp's hand a little bit in terms of introducing Nunez. But I also think Klopp won't be forced into playing him straight away every single game. And we know that he won't do it. He's shown before that he gives, he beds people in slowly. So he's not going to throw him in at every single game. So he's got all the attributes, I think, is what we should point out. You look at him, he's quick, he's powerful, he's good in the air, he's good with his feet. Like, he's got everything. It's just a case of pulling that all together. And under someone like Klopp, I've got full confidence in that we're going to do it. And we also needed a bit of a lift. And like I said, strikers are few and far between. So you do have to go and almost find, not a hidden gem, because he's not a hidden gem. He showed us on the big stage last season what he can do. But sometimes you have to go out and you have to spend this money on young players, especially. And that's just the way of the world nowadays. So we went out. We knew we had to get a striker. We haven't had one for a while, an out proper number 9. We've gone out and done it. So I think for Liverpool fans, it was a massive confidence boost going into this season, especially after knowing that we were going to lose Mane. It was a case of we need to, we need to sign a striker, and we've gone out and we've done that. So I'm massively looking forward to watching him play. And in terms of starting against Fulham, Klopp might be in a position where he kind of has to, really, but it all very much depends on Jota, I think, because if Jota's fit, I think he's probably still sticks with Jota and Salah and Diaz kind of to start with, but the injury to Jota could kind of force his hand a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. So there's 4 minutes left of the stream. We're going to take some quick fire questions. Members will obviously be prioritized with their questions. So let's get some quick fire questions in, because that's what we want to do. That's how we always finish the stream. Nick Knack believes it's an ideal game to throw Nunes in against a newly promoted side. Well, that's fair enough. Let's not forget about Roberto Firmino either. Could see him starting as well. He has been, I think Gabriel Bolaho said on TalkSport, I had to write about it earlier. I don't listen to that absolute shit. But no, Gabriel Bolaho said on TalkSport that Firmino should get a new contract, a new couple of years contract. So that would be an interesting one, whether he'll be in and around the future Liverpool sides. Slatzer has said 2011 Barcelona or current Manchester City. Will we let nostalgia cloud it? Because ideally, but that side did win 2 Champions Leagues effectively.
Yeah, and I think City haven't won the Champions League, so
yeah, they're decent. Man City, they're right up there, and if they do win the Champions League in the next couple of years, it'll be right there. But I think you have to say 2011 Barca, right?
Yeah, I'm still taking that. It's gonna be a lot for me to kind of go with Man City, given that I'm now very anti Man City, given that just because we tend to play them all the time in massive games, and I want us to win all the
time. Right. Top 3 favorite goals from Jamie of all time. That's so difficult, man. That's so difficult. I can tell you my favorite, and it's a really obscure one, and I don't know why. But when we beat Man City 4-1 in Jurgen Klopp's first season, Martin Skrtel scored, and for some reason that is my favorite goal of all time. And I think it was a mixture of the way that how he booted that ball, like he literally just didn't care, and the celebration where he literally did a knee slide into the stand. What a man! But that's definitely one of my favorites. What about you, mate?
I think if I'm kind of going on the ones I kind of remember the most, the 3 that stick out was I was at Anfield for Dejan Lovren scoring the 4th against Dortmund in added time. That was kind of an experience and something I'll never ever forget, given that Dortmund were that side at that time and we were that team that were kind of so inconsistent, and it wasn't always honky dory with us, to be honest. At that time, it was just one of those moments where it was like, oh, this is just Liverpool, not back where we should be. We're still in the Europa League, but it was kind of that feeling of this is what we're all about: big European nights and drama, and winning that. Oxlade-Chamberlain's first goal in the Champions League against Man City was another big one of those ones that I really loved. And then the ones I like watching back, I love watching Salah's goal against City at the Etihad when he just dinks it over at Ederson. That was magic. I enjoyed that one big time. And yeah, there were so many, but I think when I think about it, those ones stand out. But then you think of Gerrard's against West Ham, and well, there's so many.
There's loads. To put it into top 3 would be madness. But yeah, anyway, we're going to finish the stream there. Big thanks to Marcello for joining us, and I'm sure we'll see him again very, very soon. But yeah, I'll be back tomorrow at 11 a.m. For Manchester United v Crystal Palace. So make sure to join me there and subscribe to the channel, and we'll